Hello and greetings from T-Mobile Tribal Knowledge Base. Today we're going to be running through another targeted street video to help you on your calls to go through different networking issues and talk through some of the troubleshooting calls like drop calls, slow data, and how we can try some different steps that might not be in the flows or just use some basic tribal knowledge to be able to maneuver through these calls to stop some trouble tickets and avoid some frustration with hey, I've tried everything that I can, we've exchanged the phone multiple times, what are we doing now? So let's kind of talk through how to maneuver through dropped calls, slow data, and calls that can be frustrating with multiple exchanges. So first thing we want to talk through is what can we roll out and why. So the first thing we want to do here is talk through hardware, software, network. So hardware, we have phone, SIM card. Software, we have what is internal in the phone telling the hardware how to work with each other. The hardware is just what can you touch, is a screen, hardware button, piece of metal, antenna, things like that. And then we have the network modes, which the network modes we need to see as different paths from point A to point B. So if we were using a Google Maps Android application, for instance, LTE would be the most desired path and the quickest estimated time of arrival, but that doesn't mean we can't change paths and try to get off that network to try to get the customer from point A to point B. It just might be a little bit slower, so let's kind of talk through that. What we would want to do, let's say for instance we get a call on a Windows phone, Nokia 635 on, hey, my data is slow, and we would pull up the troubleshooting doc for that. The first thing we would want to do is in our heads try to figure out what would this be as far as slow data. Slow data hardware, most likely not going to be the actual phone slow data, because unless it had a fall and the antenna is not connecting properly and you don't have 4G to be able to connect at all, then it's probably not going to be a hardware issue. The SIM card, let's talk through this real quick. The SIM card is the gatekeeper for your signal. It has nothing to do with what happens after you register. So if you want to pull up the role of the SIM card, which is 44028 in T Community, or you can even pull up the Mythbuster blog from 2011, it talks through how the SIM card has nothing to do with after your phone connects in for like a network issue. So if we're exchanging or processing SIM card exchanges or updating SIMs or getting the new SIM cards for anything other than a registration error or a no signal error, we probably need to recheck those documents. So what can we roll out? Why not the SIM card? The next thing we would want to do is look at software. So is the phone up to date on software? Did the phone have an update to help it communicate with LTE or 4G better than it did before? We would want to check that to make sure the phone can communicate and maneuver through those settings correctly and know how to work through those. The next thing we would want to know is make sure that there's no known issues with those and to make sure there isn't a software update to fix the issue with that update. So just make sure that we're checking known issues in software. One thing to note here is that if a software shows up to date from the customer's phone, let's say on a Samsung phone, but it doesn't show that they're up to date in Grand Central or something like that, it could show up to date in the phone because they're 3 or 4 versions behind, and you have to plug your phone into keys to get those out. Samsung doesn't want to roll out an over-the-air update for 3 or 4 versions all at one time. We need to plug that into keys and make sure that it's done correctly. That's one frustration with software updates. The customer's saying they're up to date and we're saying they're not. We need to be able to explain that, and that's why. The next thing, so after hardware, not the phone, we know it won't be the SIM card because it's just the gatekeeper. Software's up to date, there's no known issues with that. We would want to shake the network now between slow data and drop calls or some of those network connectivity issues. So why would we change a network mode? We would change a network mode to see if we can get the customer from point A to point B a different path, and if we can get them on a different path and get them from point A to point B, we know the phone's working. We know we don't have to exchange the phone, and we know that it is a network issue just on LTE or just on 2G or just on 4G, whatever network we're switching off of. That would be why we want to check network modes, because we can switch between them and get the customer a resolution, get them from point A to point B. Even if we switch from LTE to 4G, our 4G network is faster than most other networks anyway, so we're not going to lose a customer experience just by switching to 4G. And if we file the tickets correctly for LTE only issue, we can fix them a lot faster. So just for reiteration here, 2 things that we want to try is switching network modes before we would file a trouble ticket just to kind of get some more information to see if there's a different way we can get from point A to point B. As well as in the engineering comments, sometimes you'll see that they say to determine between hardware on the device or SIM, put your SIM in a different phone. They're not saying that the SIM card is the problem. They're saying take the SIM card out, put it in a different piece of hardware so we can prove that the network and the SIM card are registering right and the network works correctly, that it's just a phone issue. That would be one way to prove it. So to avoid trouble tickets coming back as no trouble found, we would want to switch network modes and try the SIM card in a different phone. Those are two really quick troubleshooting steps that we can avoid a lot of frustration and needless trouble tickets and exchanges that we have. So today we learned how to roll things out, hardware, software, network. Why not the SIM card, when to switch network modes and why, and how to deal with a trouble ticket that comes back, put a SIM card in a different phone. So now we know how to explain that to the customer. Thank you so much for joining, and hopefully this helped you out, and more Street videos to come. Thank you.